Gretchen, and welcome back to my channel. So, as everyone can tell, the holiday season is quickly approaching. And because of that, you may find yourself in the situation where you need to hide a tattoo or a piercing, either from just someone in your family who doesn't necessarily agree with them, or maybe someone in your life that just doesn't understand them, or heck, even the workplace. You may find yourself needing to hide a body mod. So for this video, because of the timing, I thought I would discuss various ways in which you can hide both tattoos and piercings for whatever reason. Now I would like to start off by saying this is not a how-to for those of you who are underage, want a tattoo or a piercing, but your parents won't let you get one. This is not me saying, hey, this is how you can hide it in case you go behind their backs and get it. So that is not what I'm endorsing here. This is for people who are of age to get a tattoo or a piercing on their own and just find themselves in the situation where they just need to cover it up for whatever reason. So I'm going to discuss various ways to hide both tattoos and piercings. I'm going to start with tattoos just because there are fewer ways to hide tattoos than there are piercings. The list is going to be a little bit shorter. So for tattoos, one way to hide them is through your clothing options. Planning your outfits before either an event or a work day is really going to help you cover up a little bit better and easier. So for example, I have this flannel shirt on right now. The sleeves are rolled up so you can see my arm tattoos. If I were to roll my sleeves down though and button them, you wouldn't be able to see any of my tattoos. You wouldn't be able to tell that I have tattoos, other than the ones on my fingers, but we'll get to that in a minute. I also have leggings on, so you can't see any of my leg tattoos. This is a great way to kind of control what people can see on you. It's a little bit more difficult in the summertime when it's hot out. You don't necessarily want to wear long pants and long sleeves, so you kind of have to figure that one out a little bit more. That's when layers are going to be great. So if you're out with someone that you need to cover up in front of, wear a cardigan. As soon as you're away from them, you can strip the cardigan off. Things like that. Wintertime, much easier to do. But picking your clothing choices, kind of deciding, all right, this is the outfit I am going to wear for this particular event, and that way I know none of my tattoos will show. That's probably the easiest way. Another way is with your hair. So if you have short hair, unfortunately, this does not pertain to you, but if you have long hair like myself, and say you have a neck tattoo, long hair, wearing it down is gonna help cover that. I have a fleur-de-lis on the back of my neck. If for some reason I needed to cover that up, I would just leave my hair down. If you are looking on the back side of me, you would not be able to see that tattoo because it is covered with my hair. Same with the music notes behind my ear. Because my hair is down, you can't see them. So if you have long hair and you feel like you're gonna need to cover a neck tattoo or like a behind the ear tattoo, wear your hair down. Another way is to accessorize. So, do you have a finger tattoo? One of the best ways to cover something like this is to take a ring and put it over top. Voila. Tattoo's gone. Do you have a wrist tattoo? Great way to cover that up is with a watch or even some like bracelets. You'll notice that it obviously doesn't cover the entire thing, but it covers the majority of it, so that it's not quite as in your face. Finding different accessories to work for you to cover any of these smaller tattoos is another great way to hide them. Another thing you can do is to use bandages of some kind. So if it's a smaller tattoo, you may use just a band-aid. If it's a larger tattoo, you could use something like an ace bandage. However, I will say with using bandages, come up with a story and make it believable. Because if you have an ace bandage on you, someone could be like, oh my God, what happened to you? And you're gonna be there like,
I fell?
That's probably not gonna be the most believable thing. So if you're gonna use a bandage of some kind, come up with a story so that if someone asks you, you can be as believable as possible. Another thing, and this is kind of to the extreme, but another thing you can do is use makeup to cover your tattoo. Many people have been using foundation or concealer to cover up tattoos. The only problem with that is you risk it rubbing off. So say I covered up my plague doctor with foundation. If I brush up against something accidentally, that foundation could get wiped away. So that method not only takes a great deal more time and focus and patience and just everything else, but you also risk it not working out in the end. You could probably use any kind of foundation, you know, that you just find at Ulta, Target, Sephora, wherever. However, I do know that there is a particular foundation and concealer that are specifically formulated to cover up tattoos. And I want to say it's called Dermablend. Don't quote me on that. I will find a link and put it in the description below, but I'm pretty sure that is what it's called. And it is actually created to cover tattoos. I've been thinking about actually purchasing some and doing like a first impressions video or something like that. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see that video. I personally am interested just to see if it will cover up tattoos. That is another route you can go if none of these other options for covering tattoos works for you. Also keep in mind, if your tattoo is new, many of these ways of covering a tattoo will not work for you. You can't take a brand new tattoo and slap some makeup on it. First of all, that's gross. Second of all, that's not healthy. Same as you can't take an ace bandage and wrap around a brand new tattoo. It'll suffocate it. New tattoos need air to breathe. Not a good option. You kind of need to know when and where you may need to cover up a tattoo, and if you'll be able to, because if it's a new one, you most likely won't. All right, so now we're moving on to covering up and or hiding piercings. Piercings, depending on which one, are a little bit more easy to hide. So the first thing you can do to hide a piercing is through a retainer. If you don't know what a retainer is, it is a clear piece of jewelry that is basically used to hold a piercing open. So say you have your philtrum / Medusa pierced, and all of a sudden your place of work is like, ooh, you can't have that. If you don't want to lose the piercing, but you need to hide it for work, you can use a retainer. Now, keep in mind that clear retainers are not going to make a piercing completely invisible. In fact, whenever I wear retainers in my nostril piercings, they end up looking like really big blackheads. So retainers don't make it invisible, but it does kind of take away from having a gem there. There are also flesh-colored retainers. This type of retainer is meant to kind of flesh with your flesh. That was kind of gross actually. But it's supposed to look more like your skin tone. Keep in mind that usually flesh-colored retainers come in like a whopping 5 shades, like 5 skin tones. So it'll be almost a miracle if it matches you perfectly. At that point, you could play it off as a beauty mark, but do keep that in mind that if you go the flesh-colored route, more than likely it will not match your skin tone, because out of the wide spectrum of skin tones, usually there's only like 5 flesh tone retainers available. Much like with tattoos, another way to hide piercings is to let your hair down. So again, if you have short hair, unfortunately, this may not work for you. But if you have long hair like myself and you need to cover up some ear piercings, let your hair down, let it cover your ears. Voila, I have a headband on right now, so it's kind of making it difficult for me to cover my ears. But that is a way to cover any ear piercings, is to just let your hair down in front of it. Voila. Gone. A way to hide stretched lobes. At first, I never saw this as something that people would need to hide, but I've seen it, that people actually end up needing to hide stretched lobes depending on their size. Like the larger the size, the more noticeable they are. So there are 2 methods to hiding stretched lobes, depending on the size. The first way is to wear just regular plugs. So whereas I'm wearing tunnels today, you can clearly see through my lobes. That's gonna be the most noticeable way to see that someone has stretched ears. What you can do is just wear regular old plugs, whatever you want, and that way it just looks like a normal earring, unless you have larger stretched lobes. At that point, a good way to potentially hide that you have stretched lobes is to go back to those flesh-colored retainers I mentioned, and they make flesh-colored plugs. Now again, there's a wide variety of skin tones, and usually there's only like 5 flesh-colored skin tone plugs, retainers, what have you. So you're most likely not gonna get a perfect match, more than likely. However, it does take the notice down a little bit. It still can come close to your skin tone, and then that way it makes it a little bit easier to hide that you do have stretched lobes. Another thing you can do if you know you're gonna need to hide piercings is to pick piercings that are easy to hide just on their own. One of those is a septum piercing. Septum piercings are probably one of the easiest piercings to hide, because if you get something like a little horseshoe piece of jewelry in there, you just flip it up and that's it, and no one knows it's there. You can also get a retainer. Those are usually shorter bars and you just turn it up. Again, makes it so easy to hide. So if you know you're gonna need to hide piercings in the future, stick with those that are already easy to hide. If you think you can get away with wearing jewelry, noticeable jewelry I should say, if you think you can get away with it, opt for micro gem, stone, what have you jewelry. So these are like really tiny stones on the end of the labre or like the L-shaped bar that goes in your nostrils. Opt for smaller stones. That way it's not as in your face, it's not as noticeable. It's just these tiny little stones. That could be a way if you feel like you can get by with having still noticeable jewelry. You can also try using shorter jewelry. So for example, if you have a tongue piercing, if you have a bar that normally sticks up a little bit, it may end up being more noticeable when you talk. Opt for something that's a little bit more flesh with the flesh. Again, ew. So gross. But opt for something that's a little bit more close, and then that way it's not sticking out as much. Like for tongue piercing, if you're talking, the jewelry won't stick out as much. It'll be a little bit closer to the tongue, a little less noticeable. Same with ear piercings or even lip piercings. Lip piercings especially, if you're talking, sometimes that jewelry will poke out more. Find jewelry that's a little bit closer to your lip or to your ear or wherever the piercing is, and then that way it's not sticking out or moving constantly. It takes the attention away from it. Also, much like with tattoos, you can accessorize to kind of hide piercings. Not as many options with piercings as there are with tattoos, but you could do something like wear a hat, pull it down over your ears, bam, your ear piercings are hidden. A little bit more tricky to do with piercings, but things like that. You could also wear a really chunky scarf, and like if you've got your labret piercing right here, chunky scarf can cover it up, but then you just have to hold it that whole time, and that's awkward. So accessorize how you see fit. And finally, much like with tattoos, if you have a new or newer piercing, these options are going to be limited for hiding them. You should not be changing out jewelry early. This can lead to irritation, which can also lead to infection. No one wants that. No one wants to deal with an infection because that just makes things a whole lot worse. So if you're about to attend an event where you know you're gonna have to cover up, or you're about to start a work schedule where you know you're gonna have to cover up, kind of keep these things in mind before you go out and get a brand new piercing or body mod in general. So these are just some methods that either I have tried myself or I've heard others try regarding hiding their body mods of any kind. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other ways of hiding body mods, or if you yourself have found that sometimes it's just easier to hide them to kind of avoid any turmoil that may arise from having your body mods exposed. Again, this is not me saying, hey, go behind your parents' backs and get a body mod, and then this is how you can hide them. This is for those of us who are old enough to get them on our own and have just found that sometimes it's easier to hide them for short periods of time than to just deal with all of that. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Go down there and hit that subscribe button wherever it may be, because I don't know. Even though I do, this is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys.